Do you understand? So, you see, let me give you a preamble so that you can have an insight of what we are talking about. Last time we talked about South South being a political creation. Okay? This week we are talking something more sensible. You see, this topic we are discussing about is a topic that most people have misunderstood in Nigeria and in Africa. And it has to do with feelings and emotion because many people, most times when they hear the Nigerian Biafra Civil War, they are very, very, emotional about it. But I want you to understand something. What we are discussing this evening is not a story, neither is it history. We are discussing a memory. There was a time Nigerians didn't see themselves as neighbors. They saw themselves as enemies. Not on Facebook, not on Twitter, not on Instagram, not on Snapchat, not on YouTube, not on TikTok, but in real life. And most people misunderstood the Civil War. They said that Nigerian Biafra Civil War started on the 6th of July, 1967. But I want to let you know that the Nigerian Biafra Civil War started long time ago before the Nigerian Biafra Civil War. It started in January 15th, 1966 in the minds of Nigerians. So I am going to give you every detail and point that you can't get anywhere in textbook and on the internet. I will give you the detailed background of what actually happened in January 15th, 1966 and on July 29th, 1966 and what happened between 4th to 5th of May in Aburi and what happened after they returned and what they agreed at Aburi. Then I'll give you the hidden secret that they won't tell you. That's what we are going to discuss this evening. You are welcome. Honorable, can we move on? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Last time, the people in charge of electricity wanted to, bring down our steeds, but today, let's see how it goes. But let me tell you something very important. You see, I like giving you a tip before we start, okay? Because I believe that people on social media are not only Nigerians. So if you happen not to be a Nigerian, let me give you a bonus before we start, okay? Honorable Speaker, I hope bonus is allowed, okay, to make up the time that we wasted for them. Okay, you see, what if I told you that United States of America, as you know today to be a powerful country, once paid an African country money to avoid being attacked. And when they refused to pay, that African country declared war on them and defeated America in that war. What would you have said? Will you believe it? It happened. It happened in the year 1801. Before, there was a state in Africa called the Babal State, spelled as Barbally, Babal State. These Babal states are not African states. They are made up of Tripoli, the present day and the modern day Libya, Morocco, Algiers, and Tunis. They were the Babal State. They controlled the Mediterranean Sea route. Any country that will pass through that sea route must pay them what is called tribute. That tribute is regarded as protection money. You must pass there and you must pay that money. Europe and America needed that trade route to trade. And there was a system. The system is that before you pass through that Mediterranean Sea, you must pay the Babel state. If you don't pay, your ship will be seized and your crew members will be taken as prisoners. Then in the year 1801, the then leader of Tripoli, which is Libya today, his name was Pasha Yusuf Kalamali. He said, what I'm telling you, after I'm done telling you, go and check the internet, go and search, make your research, you see it. Pasha Yusuf Kalamali said that America, United States of America, must pay him money before they pass through the Mediterranean Sea. America at first paid, but later on, the president of America, Thomas Jefferson, said that America will not pay again. Do you know what happened? Libya, that is Tripoli, then declared war on America. America decided to fight Tripoli. American warship fought at the Mediterranean, but obviously they were far from home and they had no experience of that terrain because that terrain belonged to the Babel state. Tripoli fought them. In fact, during the war, Tripoli seized American warship which was called USS Philadelphia. They seized that ship in 1805. America negotiated peace and paid Tripoli the money and then paid money for their crew members that Tripoli seized in that war. That was the first war that Tripoli negotiated and then in their favor. America did not win that war. America paid. So an African country can take America to war and win. But this kind of history, they don't teach you because they don't want you to know how powerful you are. Number one bonus, down. Number two bonus before we go to Nigeria. Do you know that the first country on earth to recognize America as a country was an African country? When America gained independence on the 4th of July, 1776, nobody was afraid of them. Nobody wanted to trade with themselves. And not trading with you means what? Not trading with you means that you will not work with anybody. And not working with anybody means that your economy will collapse. Britain did not recognize America. Germany did not. France did not. An African country said, come, I will welcome you. Which country is that? Morocco. They recognized America as a sovereign country in the year 1777 under the leadership of Sultana Mohammed III. They recognized America and told America, you can bring your ship to Moroccan port and your ship will be protected under our protection. America began to trade with them. Morocco was the first country in the world on earth to recognize America as a sovereign nation. That is why America signed what is called Moroccan-American Treaty of 1786. Is the world treaty most by Africa. Put them in eyes and tell them we were the first to recognize you when the entire world rejected you. See now? Can you hear me now? Okay, where did you stop hearing me? Where did you stop hearing me? Okay, so sorry about that. I said after that kind gesture that Morocco demonstrated, America went into a treaty called the Friendship Treaty. It was called the Moroccan and American Treaty. It was signed in the year 1786. That treaty to date is the longest unbroken diplomatic relationship and treaty in America today. That is the longest treaty that America has to date. But most times, they don't talk about those things so that you will not know how great you were. Because if you know how great you were, you will know that you were the one that did that in the past. You know, the confusion that most people have is that when we say that your ancestors were great, you think, oh, okay, our fathers were great. It is not really that it was your fathers that were great. It is you that is great because you are your ancestors reincarnated. So if you know that your ancestors were great, you can do that same thing that they did because it was you that did it. All you need to do is to recognize the fact that it was you that did it. Then you search deep within you and you find what we call melanin magnificent. You are magnificent. These are the bonus I'm giving you. Number one bonus, that an African country defeated America. Number two bonus, an African country was the first country on earth to recognize America as a sovereign nation. These things are online. If you search it deep, you will see it. Thank you, Honorable. Then we'll go straight to our topic. Damn. Can you hear me now? That's exactly that's exactly what I'm using. I was using before. Okay, okay. So sorry about that network. So sorry. Okay, I said we are going straight to one of the part of history that usually gets your country people resentful when they hear. Is a very sensitive topic. Pay attention. You can even get a pen and a paper. Is a linchpin information. It is not entertainment. What we are about to do is not a story, not a cock and bull story. Okay? I'm taking you through a memory lane that saw the end of millions of people. Okay? Um, Honorable, can you hear me, speaker? We are going to give we are going to give 1 minute silent. Okay? 1 minute silent as honor to those who we are about to discuss. Okay? So please, you will count it. 1 minute silence. Let's go. May the soul of the departed and all the legends that passed the Nigerian Biafra civil war all rest in peace. We say amen. Okay, let's go further. Let's go further. We have given honor to those that honor is being due. Now listen and pay attention, my people. You see, I tell people, when you want to discuss something sensitive like this, most times where historians make mistake, I call them lazy historians. They go and start with the event itself. They don't start with the things that accumulate to those events. So the things that accumulate to this event is what I'm about to teach you. So we go straight to the event. Pay attention. You see, in January 15th, 1966, the one you call 1966, young military officers who were mostly majors in rank and file decided that Nigeria was corrupt. They decided that revolution is the only answer. They decided that the politicians are corrupt, and they made a decision, a choice, a decision that was very dangerous. What is that decision? They decided that they were no longer going to vote, but they are going to overthrow the civilian government. On the early morning of 15 January 1966, Nigerian country had the sound that no nation will hear and survive. What is that sound? The sound of a boot and the sound of a gun. Nigeria will never remain the same again. Pay attention. You see, young military officers who were mostly majors, let me give you rank and file so you can know their position. You had the GOC, General Officer Commander. You had the Brigadier. You have the Lieutenant Colonel, the Colonel. You have Major, Senior Military Officer, Junior Military Officer. So the people that did this were the what? Were the majors. But before we go to that, let me teach you something. Because in this process, we are going to talk about why it was called Igbo coup and why it is not Igbo coup. Stay with me. You see, most people think that the coup happened in January 16, 1966. What if I told you that the coup was not supposed to happen on that day? The coup was supposed to happen in December 1965. That was when the first coup in Nigeria was supposed to happen. Nzogu himself wrote it in book and said it with his mouth. That was when the coup was planned. The coup was supposed to happen in Enugu, December 1965, because the Nigerian military was planning what is called annual military shooting competition. It was hosted in Enugu. Nzogu's plan was to capture all the senior military officers and place them into what is called sedation and then take over the country in the coup d'etat. Do you understand me? But then what happened? Why did they shelve the plan and postpone the date? They shelved the plan and postponed the date because there was a brigadier who did not come for that meeting. Who was that? Samuel Ademulegun. Samuel Ademulegun was born on the 5th of December 1924. He was commissioned in army in 1949. He was trained in Sandhurst. He was the one who competed on who would be the next general officer commanding in Nigeria. Pay attention. When the military of the white men left Nigeria, Nigeria had no GOC. Agi Ironsi was in Congo for peacekeeping, UN peacekeeping, United Nations in Congo. When he came back, two people competed on who will be the next GOC. That was Major General Agiyi Ironsi and Samuel Ademulegun. There was another man, but he didn't compete with them. Who is that? Babatunde Ogundipe. There was another man, Zachary Marami. These were four people who had the prospect of becoming the general officer commander, but only two were to compete. That is Agiyi Ironsi and Samuel Ademulegun. They were from southern part of Nigeria. The army divided into two because Samuel Ademulegun began to campaign and his brothers wanted to vote for him. Agiyi Ironsi and Easterners were planning on how they will vote for him. So military divided into two. But there was a clause. What is the clause? The then Saldana of Sokoto, who was the Western Premier, Ahmadu Bello, was a friend to Samuel Ademulegun. And young military officers frowned at it that a senior brigadier was fantasizing with a civilian power. So what happened? When the whites left Nigeria, one man saved the career of Agiyi, Zachary Mai Marali. He was the one who advised that the next person that should be the general officer commanding should be Agiyi Ironsi because he did very well in Congo in peacekeeping. And that made Agiyi was voted. Agiyi became the first general officer commanding in Nigeria. Fact established. Can you still hear me? Please. I don't know this network, but don't worry. Can you still hear me now? So sorry about that, please. So sorry about that. Let's continue. So sorry about that. Listen, Agiyi Ironsi became the first GOC established. Now listen. You see, one thing that you will never forget is that Nigeria is a country only on paper. In feeling, Nigeria is three powerful nations. South, that is east, west, and north. Let me give you the three powers so that you can get it in your mind. One is Sir Ahmadu Bello was the northern premier. In the west, you have Obafemi Awolowo and Akintola. These people were very powerful. Why is Nigeria like that? Nigeria is like that because politics in Nigeria has to do with ethnicity. You can't take it away. What you are seeing today is how it has been before. Politics in Nigeria is affiliated to identity. That is why in everything they have been doing, it always goes down to ethnicity. When the first political party was formed, Nigerian National Democratic Party, after that they went to NCNC, that is National Council of Nigerian Citizens, mostly by the Easterners. MPC, Northern People's Congress, mostly by the Northerners. AG, mostly by the Westerners. The country has always been like that. Always been like that. But wait. Follow me carefully so you will know why the coup happened. The ideology and the perspective of the people that plotted the coup. Young military officers who were mostly majors in our age today. Speaker is older than them, people that did this. They are in their 20s when they did it. Young people, because the country was flourishing well. They say, no, Nigeria cannot be surveyed. Nigeria has become so corrupt. They say, we are going to carry out revolution. This revolution will come as military coup d'etat. These were the cities where the coup was plotted. Lagos, Kaduna, Abeokuta, Ibadan, Enugu. Who are the coup plotters? Listen attentively to the names. There were so many people that plotted the coup. But listen, history most times remembers key heads. Key heads. So I'll mention the key heads. There are 6 key heads. One is Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogo, a major in the army. Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogo. Major Emmanuel Ifejuna. That guy has a great history. He has once featured in Olympics, but I'll bring him very soon later. Then you had Chris Onohoro. You had can you see hear me, honorable? You had Okafor, who was called Chris Okafor. You had a Yoruba officer, okay? You had a Yoruba officer there. I'll get his title. I want to get his rank for you. Then they were 6 in number, okay? Humphrey Chupuka was there. I want you to get their place where they come from. Listen, today, people say that Delta is not part of the Igbos, right? Right? But when they want to talk about the coup d'etat, they say they are Igbos, right? Write that down. We are going to clear why they bring those stereotypes. Okay? Pay attention. 6 people, 5, 4 Igbos. 1 is an Igbo when it is convenient. Why do I say when it's convenient? Because today they don't regard them. But we know. Why is Kaduna associated with Nzogu? Kaduna is associated with Dogo because Nzogu was merely an Igbo man by name, but all his life he lived in the north. He spoke Hausa fluently, he ate their food. In fact, most northern officers were so loyal to them. They were so loyal to him. Whatever he said, they do. That was why it was easy for him to convince soldiers to join. Do you know who Saldana of Sokoto was? Do you know who Amadou Bello was at that time? Amadou Bello was as powerful as, who can I use to compare? There is nobody currently in Nigeria who was as influential and as powerful as Amadou Bello was in the northern Nigeria. But yet, northern soldiers joined in Zogo to go and take him out. Why? Because they saw Nzogo as one of them. As one of them. They knew that the coup was not ethnical in preparation, but it was a revolution. That was the mindset. But what happened? The coup failed. Why? The coup failed because what was intended was not what happened. Listen. Why and what was the essence for the coup? The essence of the coup was first that they are going to arrest politicians. Arrest politicians, dissolve regionalism, and introduce a more disciplined central government. This was their plot. This was their plan. Okay? Remember, at that point before the coup, 2 major things has happened in Nigeria that made them to carry the coup. One was the 1964 federal election. It was rigged. Everyone knew the election was rigged. People began to lose hope in the election. The military counted that as 1. 2 was the 1965 Western Nigerian crisis that happened in AG, Action Group, between Samuel Akintola and Abafemi Awolowo. They were dragging on who would be the Western Premier. At the end of the day, the government of Tafawa Balewa convicted Obafemi Awolowo of treasury, that he is planning to overthrow the government. They discovered that there was a communication that he was having with people outside Ghana to import gun. He was in prison and he was taken to Calabar. The young military officers saw that as an infiltration into civilian government, that the central government is playing politics in what was happening in Western Nigeria. Because in Western Nigeria, once something happened, the crisis in Western Nigeria was called Operation Weti. WETIE. Operation Weti. Human beings were burned, houses were destroyed, and there was anarchy in the whole of Western Nigeria. That convinced those boys that this must not continue, and they plotted that revolution. But listen to what they make. The coup was a revolution, but the coup was poorly planned. It was poorly planned. Even those areas that were planned were not evenly executed. It was not evenly executed. Listen, a Yoruba man was among them. But the people don't pay attention. Why? Listen. Who were those who were taken out in the coup d'etat? One, in the northern Nigeria, Samadu Bello, the northern premier. You know, I will not use some word because of algorithm, so I'll be using the word "pie," right? Sure, you understand "pie"? Amadu Bello was pied. Tafawa Balewa was pied. That is northern Nigeria. Zakari Mai Malari, that man I told you that advised them to pick Agi Ironsi, he was pied. Then in the western Nigeria, okay, the western premier was pied, Samuel Akintola. He tried to resist them. He fought them with a machine gun. They overpowered him and pied him. Soldiers were pied. Which soldier were pied? Remember the man I told you, Samuel Ademulegun, that brigadier, he was pied with his wife. The finance minister of Nigeria, who was Festus Okotie-Eboh, he is from the present day Warri in Delta State. He was pied. Kor Mohammed, a colonel, was also pied. Now, the coup did not succeed in the eastern part of Nigeria, and the then ceremonial head of Nigeria, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, was outside the country. Pay attention. I'm giving you reason why it was perceived to be an Igbo coup. Listen, pay attention. The people looked at the people who were pied. They did not see a top political Easterner. But those who have analyzed history over time have made you to understand that Agiyi was in the East. The Eastern premier at that time was Michael Okpara. Agiyi was in the Eastern Nigeria. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay. Agiyi was in the Eastern Nigeria. But the Northerners believed that Zeke was tipped off, that he was told the coup will happen. That's why he left. That is their argument. Do you understand? Now, that was the suspicion. What I'm about to tell you, write it down. The January 15th, 1966 military coup d'etat in Nigeria created suspicion. It created suspicion. Agiyi Decree 32 created fear. The counter coup d'etat in Nigeria, okay, created tension and revenge. The revenge created Abuli. Abuli created misunderstanding. Misunderstanding took us back to revenge. Revenge led to Nigerian Biafra civil war. Let me explain. You see, the North was already ranged. They believed that the coup was made to eliminate. Can we answer some comment sections? Okay. Okay, no problem. Don't worry. Keep your question. Keep your questions. We are going to answer you. Keep your questions at the end, okay? I will make you understand better. Okay. Now, the coup has happened unsuccessful because Aguiyi was quick enough to get soldiers who were in his loyalty because Aguiyi have soldiers who were loyal to him. Remember, not every military officer was in support of Nzogu. People like Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, who was the commander of the 5th Battalion that was in Kanu, did not join Nzogu in the coup d'etat. He said that he is only answerable to the junior officer commander, who was Aguiyi Ironsi. That is the only person that is answerable to. Okay? At that point, there was tension in the country because Nzogu himself had injury from the attack at the Saldanas Palace. He had injury. He sustained injury. In fact, Nzogu refused that no one should see him at that point because they were military officers who were loyal to him. Only them, of northern origin, he was allowed to come close to. But Aguiyi quickly seized Lagos because the person in Lagos at that time was Ifejuna. The coup was not largely successful. The prime minister was taken out, the finance was taken out, but there were still soldiers who were loyal to Aguiyi. Aguiyi quickly rounded them up and arrested them. But here is what happened. The top military officers they were taken were of northern origin, western origin. Politicians, northern origin, western origin. No easterner was taken. And now, the person taking over is an Igbo man. They saw it that it was a way to eliminate their leaders and impose easterners. Listen to what really happened. You see, this I'm about to tell you is very important. Write it down. It will help you in your argument in all this. History is not only what happened. History is what people believed happened. Let me say it again. History is not only what happened. History sometimes is what people believed happened. The northern part of Nigeria believed that the coup was to eliminate their leaders. The eastern part of Nigeria believed that the coup was a revolution against corruption. Different belief. Now, it became a question of perception versus fact. When you go with fact, it wasn't an Igbo coup because what engineered the thought was revolution. But because the coup was perceived to ethnically selective, the Northerners perceived it to be an Igbo coup. And whenever people, a society, perceive that their race is a target, it engineers anger. That anger engineers fear. That fear engineered pain. And that pain engineered revenge. And that was what gave birth to July 29th, 1966. Pay attention. Aguiyi Ironsi made a terrible mistake because he fed their fear. Listen, which people do you think were the first to say secession? You know, when you say secession, people think about your people, the Southeasterners, right? But you are not the first to say you want to secede in Nigeria. Are you aware? You are not the first. The Northerners first said they wanted to secede because they looked at the country, they felt like, oh no, we don't belong here. So what did they do? That was the first time we had the word Alaba. Go and check the meaning of the word Alaba. Alaba in Hausa language means separation. They wanted to leave. But Agiyi had to please the North. Agiyi did everything possible to please the North to stay. Do you understand? In fact, Agiyi Ironsi had more. Can you hear me? Agiyi Ironsi had more military officers in his cabinet than Tafawa Balewa had. In fact, people, the second to him was Babatunde Ogundipe. But something happened. People like Babatunde Ogundipe was not interested in key areas in military. So what was he doing? He was the one allocating living quarters that was left by the past civilian administration. So what happened? Someone like Gowon came back from Sandhurst. He came back because listen, Nigerian military is made up of 3 trainees. 1, Western trainees, people who were trained in the West. 2, Sandhurst. And the last one is soldiers who came back from United Nations peacekeeping. So they were veterans who came back from war. That is people like Agi Ironsi. Okay. Gowon, nobody knew Gowon before. Gowon came back and they made him army chief of chief of staff. They gave him power. They were like, who is this guy? But Agi Ironsi placed him there. Gave him that kind of power. In fact, it was Gowon that was given the commission to interrogate the young people who carried out the coup d'etat. That is Nzogu, Donatus Okafor them, and the rest of it. It was him who was given the mandate to do those things. But the mistake that Agi Ironsi did was to abolish regionalism. He abolished regionalism using Decree 32 of 1966. He abolished regionalism. That regionalism now fed on what people were thinking. Because when he abolished regionalism, the regions in Nigeria lost their power. Because before, regions were more powerful than the central. How is it? That was why people like Ahmadu Bello was powerful. People like Michael Okpala was powerful. People like Obafemi Awolowo was powerful. So those regions were powerful. In fact, the people respected their premiers than they respected the central. But he abolished it and brought a unified system, which is unitary system of government. That power will now be centralized in the center, and from there being shared to the region. So region had no power. The North perceived it that, oh, you want to weaken us so you can control the nation. And they saw him, oh, he's an Igbo man, a man from the East. So they began to plot the coup d'etat, the counter coup d'etat. But the counter coup d'etat was very slow. Even a blind man could see it. But Ironsi was so full of himself that he didn't pay attention to what was happening. He felt that, oh, it can happen. Do you understand? Pay attention. At that point, Nigerian military was not more than 10,000 soldiers. So when you want to plan something, it is easy to plan it. The first place that the counter coup d'etat was began to give birth was in the University of Zaria. A lecturer in the school was heard teaching political science students that the North must carry out their counter coup d'etat. Some students who were of Southern origin heard it and went and reported to the school authority. But then the military ignored it, that it was nothing. People like Alexandra Madebo wrote a letter to Agiyi warning him that he had that coup is being plotted against him. He waved it away. You know, the African proverb said the dead that will kill a dog doesn't allow it to perceive the smell of a shit. Okay? Now, he neglected everything that was coming. Everything until it happened. The second place that the birth happened was there was a man that most times history don't mention him. His name was Usman Yusuf Castina. He later became the governor, the military governor of the northern Nigeria. He is the son of Emir of Castina. So what did Agi Ironsi do? Let me make you understand. Let me make you understand. Before Agiyi came, you had regions with power, right? Amadu Bello, Michael Okpara in the east, Amadu Bello in the north, Samuel Akintola in the west. These people were dissolved. He now brought military governors. He now said, but you being a governor, you go to your place. Ojukwu became the military governor. He was a lieutenant colonel in the east. Osman Castina Yusuf became the military governor in the north. And then, remember, in the west, you need a military governor. So, who is there? Fujuyi. Fujuyi became the military governor there. You come to the Midwest. Who became? David Adapo Edo. He is from Urobo. He became the military governor there. So everyone was in their place. So because they were in their place, it is easy to plan something with your people. If someone like Ojukwu was to be the military governor of the north, you can't plan a coup. Because the man in power is his brother. Do you understand? If someone like Castina was in the east, he can't plan a coup with the easterners. Because he had plotting a coup with his brother. So because Agiyi made a mistake and placed everyone where they belonged, it was easy to plan the coup. That was his mistake number one. In 1966, Castina, who was then the military governor of the northern Nigeria, see, they noticed they were, the north was already scared that the easterners may carry out another coup. So what did they do? He called a meeting, Castina, and said that when the north want to carry their own coup, they will do it in broad daylight. That they will not do it like the coward South that went at night and started murdering people in their sleep. Why did they say that? They said it because they thought we were plotting another coup. So saying it is to let you know that, hey, we are planning something. But people were seeing it, but people could not understand what was happening. And now let's move straight there. Who were the people that plotted the counter coup d'etat? Murtala Mohammed. He was a lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant Colonel Theophilus Danjuma. And then you had, whom most times history don't mention, but I will mention his name. Usman Adamu. And then Castina Yusuf Usman. But this one, history doesn't mention his name because most times he didn't come out plainly. So history mentioned only 3 people, which I just mentioned for you. That is Murtala Mohammed, Theophilus Danjuma, and William Adamu. These people were the people that showed their face. Wisdom is the principal thing, my brother. So what happened? They proceeded to carry the coup. 29 July 1966. Agi Ironsi was in Ibadan. He went to visit his friend, Adekunle Fujuyi. When the military officers arrived to take him, Fujuyi refused to move. In fact, what Fujuyi did on that day is recorded in the Nigerian and West African history. Not only Nigeria, West African history as one of the demonstration of loyalty and honor that one died with his commander. Fuji refused to leave them. And what happened? They took both of them and tied them. Of course, my brother, wisdom na water. If they pour, they tied both of them. Agi went low. But there is something in history that they don't mention that I want to teach you today. History buried him, but I will tell you. His name is Donatus Okafor. He was one of the first plotters of the coup d'etat in the first, that is 15 January 1966. Do you know how he died in the counter coup? Do you know how they tied him? When the northern officers came to him, do you know what he said to them? He said, "You cannot scare me. It can only take one bullet." Do you know what the soldiers did? They said it will not only take one bullet. They dug ground and buried him. They buried him alive. Let me show you his face. I don't know if you will see, but everybody can come close to the camera. This picture, I don't know how you will see it, but I don't know how you are going to see it. I wish you can see it, but don't worry. I'm going to give it to Honorable to give you. In fact, I am going to be giving you a book that you must read. The Making of the African Legend, Frederick Forsyth, free of charge. Half of your son, free of charge. I will give you another book that is very, very expensive. Very, very expensive. But I will give you for free. On behalf of Honorable Speaker, I will give you the book for free. It is called In Africa. In Biafra, Africa Died. You will message him, he will tell you how you will get it. After Agiyi Ironsi was tied with Fuji, who was supposed to take power? Babatunde Ogundipe. He was a brigadier. He was to take over. But what happened? Let me teach you. Pay attention. In military, when all chiefs are down, rank is no longer what is being listened to. What they listen to is the military officer who is able to command crowd. A man can be a brigadier, but the young officers will listen to a lieutenant colonel. And in a situation of coup d'etat, the lieutenant colonel controls the country. That was what happened to Babatunde Ogundipe. He is supposed to be the one that will take over after Agiyi Ironsi. But when he called for command, the northern soldiers did not listen to him. When Yakubu Gowon called for command, people followed him. Power is not by rank in the military. Power is who control the people. Soldiers did not listen to Ogundipe. Ogundipe had to fly away to Britain. Yakubu Gowon took over. We immediately took over. That is why Ojukwu said, "Hey, young man, I cannot take command from you. You are not the highest military ranking officer. You are not. I can't take command from you." Because Ojukwu, you know, come on, he's a Queen's boy who schooled in Oxford University. From a rich home. He doesn't give an F on who you are. But what happened? Gowon played wise. Gowon appointed the new military governor of the Western Nigeria. Who was that? Robert Akindele. He was the one. Listen, that man, Robert Akindele, was one of the mistakes that Agiyi made. During the first coup d'etat, he came back to Nigeria to work with the military. After the first coup d'etat, Agiyi asked him to go back, to go and finish his training. He was not happy about that. He wasn't. Now, the morale is with Gowon. What happened? This is where things fall apart. You see, they say revenge is being served cold. The pain that followed July 29th, 1966 coup d'etat is that It was no longer soldiers, they were killing soldiers. Civilians were killing civilians. The Igbos were being hunted like an animal in train station, in the market, in their homes. That is why it is called pogrom. Over 30,000 Easterners who were predominantly Igbos were sent to early grave. It was pogrom. So why was Ojukwu angry? Ojukwu was angry that Gowon, who is the head of state, could not protect his people. Could not protect his people. Do you understand? So it was no longer soldiers killing soldiers. It was civilians murdering civilians. And that is why it is called a pogrom. So a train was sent back to the east. Not a train of traders, but a train of refugees. In fact, at some point, peoples were being chopped and put on and sent to. Do you understand? What happened next? Ojukwu refused to take instruction from Gowon. The pogrom was already happening. Over 1 million Southeasterners came back to the east because a pogrom has happened. Because the second coup d'etat was seen as what? Revenge. I told you something earlier. What did I tell you? I told you that number one, January 15th, 1966 coup d'etat in Nigeria created suspicion. Created suspicion. On which side? On the north. The north were not happy. You eliminated our people. It created suspicion. Agi came to power, created decree 32, abolitional government. That created fear. Fear. The second coup d'etat created what? Revenge. Revenge led to Abuli. Abuli led to misunderstanding. Misunderstanding went back to revenge. Revenge took to war. Let's continue. There was civil unrest in Nigeria. Listen, this is why I told you, you must be watching and be listening with all sense of humility and love. Listen, I told you earlier on, you can't learn without love. The reason why we are learning this history is not really about what happened, who won or who lost. It's for us to learn a lesson. Because history is asking, have you learned something from this? That is what history is asking. Have you learned something from this? So don't let your emotion take the better part of you. Do you understand? Be brave. Later on, Gowon called for a resolution. Come, let's have a meeting in Lagos. But Chukwuemeka Odumegu Ojukwu refused to come for that meeting. Why? He believed that soldiers from the eastern part of Nigeria and civilians who are from eastern part of Nigeria origin were no longer safe in Nigeria. So he said he's not going to come to Lagos. Do you understand? So they chose a neutral ground, which is Abuli. That is what you know today as Abuli Accord. Do you understand? So they went to Abuli. Abuli is a town in Ghana, close to a mountain. Not Accra. No. Abuli is close to Accra. But it is not Accra. Abuli. Who was the man that served as a mediator? The man that served as a mediator was the man who took over after Kwame Nkrumah. Who is that? That was Joseph Ankara. If you check your history very well, you will find out that they ate, they drank, they made merry. Listen, Ojukwu never wanted a war. Gowon never wanted a war. They both wanted to give Nigeria a last chance. Abuli was called The Last Dance. Because in Abuli, Nigeria had the chance of surviving. But then what happened? A misunderstanding happened. Pay attention so that you will know what Britain did. See, British has always been everywhere. You see, they made an agreement. In fact, in that meeting, who were those that were present? Yakubu Gowon came with people, of course. He came with the then Midwestern military governor, who was David Edo. I told you he's from present-day Urobo in Delta. He came with the Western Premier, Robert Akindele. He came with Yusuf Usman Kastina, the governor of the northern Nigeria. Who did Ojukwu came with? Names not mentioned. But Ojukwu came with both young and senior military officers who are of Eastern region origin. So they sat together in a little cabinet. Joseph Ankara served as a mediator and they had a meeting. What was the agreement in this meeting? That is what most people do not know. Let's talk about it. People say they agreed on a confederation government. If you write it in examination, in a man that knows history, you will fail. You will fail. Okay? You will fail. Because they did not really agree on confederation. They agreed something close to confederation. What was that? The country was already bleeding. No one is portioning blame. Why? Because they have looked at it. Okay, the first coup d'etat happened. It was perceived like this. The second coup d'etat happened. It is perceived like this. Let us give this country a chance. What do you want for you to remain in Nigeria? They agreed that the regions will control their military forces. One, that the soldiers will be answerable to their regional military governors. Two, that military regions, like a soldier in your region, cannot move except being given consent by the military governor. They agreed that the central government will have the highest say, even though all the regions do not agree. The central government will have the highest say. They agreed that the Supreme Military Council decision is going to be neutral, is going to be unanimous, that all the military governors will have veto power. That was their agreement. They came back. So when they came back, what happened? Federal civil servant, advisors, history has it that, when we tell you observers, when they say, oh, let us listen from observers to know if the Nigerian, can you hear me? When they say, let us listen to observers and know if this election is going well, who do you think are observers? The observer they are talking about are not people who just come and just look at you and say, oh, you're doing. No, observers have a say. What happened? The people who benefit. I told you that Nigeria was not created to fail. People say Nigeria was created to fail. That is wrong. Nigeria was not created to fail. Nigeria was created not to work. Why did I say so? When you say something failed, it's as if it's not serving the purpose. Nigeria is serving the purpose at which it was created. The only thing that it is not working for you. Do you understand? It is not working for you, but it's not failing because the people who created it are reaping why they created it. So the people who created it, which is Mr. B, you know Mr. B? Mr. B saw the agreement and said, what is wrong with you? This agreement is more like a confederation. You are giving them power. The military is going to be loose. The regions are going to be more powerful than the central. It's not going to happen. So what happened? Ojukwu, on the other hand, has returned with his people, telling his people, oh, look at what happened. People were already celebrating. Only for Gowon to wake up and declared another decree which made the central government to still remain the most powerful. Then Ojukwu said, this was not what we agreed in Ghana. It's not what we agreed. But everywhere was still calm until May 27th, 1967. What happened? Yakubu Gowon dissolved the regions and created 12 states out of Nigeria. And he created River State out of the eastern Nigeria, carving out that part that has the oil out of Ojukwu's control. That was the straw that brought the camel's back. Because the black oil was one of the major determinants of the contention. And that was strategic. So what happened? Ojukwu called all traders, artisans in his place. They did 3 days meeting consultation, asking for what will happen. They gave him a go-ahead. That is why most people respect and said, he didn't declare, Ojukwu didn't declare Biafra. The people declared. And that's why the people referred him as the people's leader, because he consulted them. Do you understand? That consultation was a smart move. Okay? So he consulted them and declared Republic of Biafra. 30th of May, 1967. Nigerian government was quiet. They didn't talk until July 4th of July rather. 6th of July. My birthday is 5th of July, by the way. My birthday is 5th of July. Gowon declared war 6th of July, 1967. So if I was to be a Nigerian and I was born in 1967, so I'll be running. One day, my goodness, Nigeria. They declared war. War began. Listen, this is the most sensitive part that you need to listen. See, remember what I told you. You cannot be a good student with hate in your heart. You can't be a good student with hate in your heart. Do you understand? History have taught you a lesson. What have you learned from it? See, the reason why the modern day Tankwa is the voice of Akeblan is that I don't hold grudges. Do you understand? That's why I tell people, see, someone can come and tell me and say, oh, Tankwa, your father did this or that. I check. Did my father do it? And if I see that my father did it, oh, sorry, don't be angry, my father did it. It's not my duty to protect the wrong that you did, bro. It is my duty not to repeat it. You are not a saint. You made mistakes too. Do you understand? That's why I tell you, the version of history you were taught in school was heavily reversed to favor your own nation while hiding their crime. And by so doing, fostered an unrealistic sense of patriotism used by manufacturing your allegiance to a corporate entity masquerading as your government. Because as you were growing up, you were told to be careful about some certain ethnic group. Reason being, that is how they behave. You grew up without questioning that religious stereotype. By the time you get to this level, those voices cannot be ignored. Your mind has been conditioned. You were not educated, my friend. You were trained. Education teaches you to think. Training teaches you to obey instruction and to help people who did nothing to you because of where they come from. Do you understand? So let's continue. War started. War has begun. But the tragedy of the Nigerian Biafra civil war is that the war, the major weapon of the war was not bullets. If it was bullets, Nigerian Biafra war would have been beautiful. We fought in Sudan. Yes. People have fought in Spain. But there's something about Nigerian Biafra civil war. The weapon was not bullet. The weapon was hunger. That is a war crime. Because in war, there are rules. When you broke the rules, it became war crime. Hunger became a weapon. Pay attention, let me teach you, very important. You see, do you know that Nigerian Biafran civil war is regarded as one of the worst humanitarian crises in the 20th century? One of the worst humanitarian crises in 20th century. That is why people argued it is not a civil war. Let me teach you something. What is the difference between a servant and a civil servant? Civil is the difference. Civil. Why is civil being attached to it? Because it is perceived that the servant who you send to go and wash your toilet in your house and clean your house does not do it with modality. He doesn't do it with modality. So it's not a civil servant. The one who does modality is a civil servant. When barbarians fight a war, it is a war of cannibals. When people with modality fight a war, it is called civil war. But because there was no modality in the Nigerian Biafra civil war, it is a war of cannibals. Primitive people fought. That was why we were able to buy innocent children who were not adults. Painful part of history that we are talking about today. One of the most ugly picture is the one we saw in Sudan. How many of you have seen that picture where the vulture was waiting to eat a boy? Have you seen that picture before? Honorable, have you seen that picture before? One of the most ugly picture. But why do you think that people paid attention to that picture more? Because the media spoke about it. But that is the one that people did not speak about. And that is what happened in Nigeria. Why no one spoke about it? Because the people who should speak about it were quiet. Not because they love Nigeria. Oh no, my goodness, you need to understand something. Listen, both Nigeria and Biafra was a victim in the war. Both Nigeria and Biafra were victims. The world put them on a stage. Destroy yourself, let me suck your oil. That's why we're everywhere running. Come and help us. Nobody. What did the African proverb say? When two brothers fight and kill themselves, a stranger inherit their land. Okay, you are not aware. You are not aware. That was exactly what happened. The Nigerian government thought they were giving them AK-47 because they wanted it for their own good. No. They wanted it to finish the people. They wanted it to finish. Do you know what it means? Why was the Nigerian government coming to fight Biafra? They don't want you to go. You must be part of us. You must be part of us. So if you want them to be part of you, why do you starve them to kill them? That was what no one was smart enough to ask the British government. Why? Because they were helping these people to take... See, let me teach you something that you need to understand. If you are a Muslim, okay? A Fulani Muslim, the Igbo man is more of your brother than someone from Saudi Arabia. Let me repeat. A Fulani Muslim is more of a brother to an Igbo man than a Saudi Arabia Muslim. Because we are first Africans before religion. But that is what we forget to understand. We failed to understand. So you fought the... Oh my goodness. Did you know the African proverb that said a brother's fight does not get to the bone? A brother's fight doesn't get to the bone. But the fight in Nigeria got to the bone. Nigeria used 3 techniques in fighting the war. Most of the decisions that were taken by Gowon was not something that Gowon even engineered. People from the West were telling Gowon what to do. My people, let me tell you a simple truth. Gowon can be many things. Gowon was not as evil as you think. The only thing is that he loved power. He wanted to be in that power. So he was willing. Do you think that he wanted what they agreed to happen? That thing that they agreed in Abuja, Gowon left for him, will implement it. But power that passed him said you will not implement it. You won't implement it, my friend. Because the country is not your own. You are only what? A tenant. Britain is the landlord. So you must cease seeing some certain people. That is why we promote Africanism. Because when you look inside, you will see that that is the only thing that will save you. We must deal with the actual conceptual West before we can be free. Don't you see what happened this year? Israel wrote a letter to African Union. Israel wrote a letter to African Union that Sahrawi should be recognized as a country. What is their business with that? But you that claimed that, you are from Israel, they all kept quiet when you were being slaughtered. That is why we look at Pan-Africanism and we say, in Biafra, Africa died. Why? Who was the first country to recognize Biafra as a sovereign nation? Why is it not Israel, the people you claim you came from? An African country, Ivory Coast, Tanzania, which was called Tanganyika at that time under the leadership of Julius Kambarage Nyerere. Your own first. All the European countries and the Western countries, they all kept quiet for you to kill yourselves. That is why Akebola must unite. Let me give you one simple example. Do you know that if Africa was able to succeed and unite, when Kwame Nkrumah wanted that to unite, I tell you for a fact, if Africa had one government and everyone operated on their own, I tell you that people, that kind of war that you saw in Nigeria wouldn't have happened. Because Africa will not allow Africa to fight themselves. What would have done simply, hey, you want to go? Okay, have your own country. Because power will be coming from above, authority and supervision. You need to read that book, I'm telling you. You will get it, because if I start explaining to you, we will not live here today. But let's continue. Children began to die. About 1.3 million people began to die. Mostly women and children. Children began to have colored hair, big stomach, tiny limbs, malnutrition, kwashiorkor. Why? Because 3 methods was used in the Nigerian Biafra Civil War. One method is called blockade. 2, encirclement. 3, starvation warfare. 3 methods I mentioned. 1, blockade. 2, encirclement. 3, starvation warfare. Let me explain so you can understand. Encirclement, you were to be enveloped. That is the word. To cover you. To cover you. Do you understand? You were to be covered. So you can't go anywhere. So the blockade is that the sea access was blocked. Food access was blocked. Medical access was blocked. So there's nothing you could do. You can't fight a war if you have not eaten. Do you understand? You can't fight a war if you have not eaten. So even you as an adult can survive, but when you look at your child is not surviving. There's nothing you could have done. So when Owerri fell, the people knew that they can't withstand. Because even with your Bunibu and the rest of it, it didn't have contact with the outside world. Honorable, you see why topics like this raises emotions. See how your countrymen are crying in the comment section. Someone is talking of revenge. You better stop that. Stop that, my brother. Stop that. See, let me teach you something you need to understand. See, there's a level you will get to. You will find out that revenge is ignorance. Revenge is ignorance. The best revenge you can give anyone is to progress and prosper. That's the best revenge you can give anyone. But let me continue because we are heading somewhere. Pay attention. Do you know about the young man? I want to give you an assignment. Okay? An assignment that you're going to bring in next Thursday. I told you, we are not entertaining here. I want you to learn with me. You know, I mentioned in my video, I don't like when people say United Nations. United Nations failed us. If you come to this place, they failed us in Rwanda. Have you heard of Rwandan genocide? They failed us in 1994. It was our own brother, Paul Kagame, that brought peace. United Nations failed us. They failed you too. In the Nigerian Biafra civil war, Ojukwu was going everywhere, calling them, please, can you come and save? They say they're not coming anywhere. My goodness. Tell me in the comment section. Honorable, you too, you are emotional about it. Calm down, calm down. Oh my goodness. What have we done today? See, do you know about the young man that set himself ablaze in front of United Nations? Somebody write his name in the comment section. Let me know you are current. Who is the young man that set himself ablaze in front of United Nations? Don't go and Google. Who is the man? Mention his name for me. Mention his name. Yes, as a student, a Colombian. What is his name? What is his name? Bruce. Bruce what? Honorable, mark the name of that guy. We are going to give him a book. I'm going to give him a book as a gift. I'll give you Bruce Mayok. Beautiful. Bruce Mayok. Bruce Mayok is a man that you are supposed to be. You're supposed to be celebrating in your place. He set himself ablaze when he saw that children were being pied. Do you understand? He set himself ablaze. So what are we saying? When Ojukwu saw that certain things can't happen anywhere, because if we begin to go into details of what happened in the war, because there are things I'm going to share with you, okay, but it's going to be for another day because I want to share something before we go. First is that Nzogu was released later on. Okay, he was released later on. When he was released from prison in the eastern Nigeria, he joined the war, but something happened. You know, Nzogu was tied in Enugu, present day in Nsukka. He was tied in Nsukka. Yes, Nzogu was tied in Nsukka and was taken to the north and given a burial. Okay, there are things that happened between him and Ojukwu that time. Do you understand? You know what happened to Ife Juna? I'll share with you some other time. But let me give you a broader view. Ojukwu left into exile. What did he do? The people, remember, that was why he's a smart man. If he had declared Biafra, Ojukwu would have been captured. But because he consulted the people, so when the people saw that we can't continue this after 3 years, what happened? The people say, you have to go. Because capturing you is capturing the struggle. Do you understand? He left to Ivory Coast. He left to Ivory Coast. and who handed over? Philip Effiong handed over. But Philip Effiong said something to Yakubu Gowon. He said, what we are doing today, if you do not treat the descendants of these people well, this ideological war will come next. Do you understand that statement? If you do not treat the descendants of us well, and what caused the war began again, this ideological war can start again. Why? Because you have to understand that Biafra is not just a war, it's an ideological war. That's why it is hard to die. People always come with that ideology over and over again. If you take down this person, that person will come until what causes it will not happen again. Do you understand? So what happened? Gowon declared no victor, no vanquish in 1967. Remember, I told you in our previous class that the only thing you inherited to fight the war was the 1st Battalion. Who remembered? Do you remember? Honorable, I know you remembered when I said that the only thing you inherited was the 1st Battalion. Let me explain again before we go. I told you that before 1966, 15 military installation was in the north, 3 was in the west, 1 was in the east. That one was what you used in fighting the war. Let me repeat it again so you can know it. The 3rd Battalion was in Kaduna. The 5th Battalion was in Kano. The 1st Battery Artillery was in Kaduna. The 1st Squadron Engineers was in Kaduna. 6th Battalion, while under formation, was in Kaduna. Nigeria Air Force was in Kaduna. 88 Transport Regiment was in Kaduna. 44 Military Hospital was in Kaduna. Nigeria Military Training College was in Kaduna. Nigeria Military Academy was in Kaduna. Ammunition Factory was in Kaduna. Nigeria Military School, NMS, was in Zaria. Recruit Training Depot was in Zaria. That is 15, all in the north. In the southwest, you had 4th Battalion was in Ibadan. 2nd Field Battery Artillery was in Abeokuta. 2nd Field Reconnaissance Squadron Engineers was in Abeokuta. The only thing you had in the southern eastern part of Nigeria was the 1st Battalion. That was what you used to fight the war. In addition to the Ogbunigwe and little arms you were getting from black market. How do you want to win a war? But you try to hold them for 3 years. Do you understand? Now they said, no victor, no vanquish. This is the major point I want you to understand. Throughout history, history has always shown one thing. One thing. What is that? War can end officially. War. Someone said only one in the southeast. Let me show you something. What I'm opening to you is Frederick Forsyth, the making of the. It's not your man that wrote it to, a white man. Give me a few minutes. I think. I don't know if you can see that. So you can read it yourself. You can't really see it. But I will send it to Honorable for you to read. Do you understand? Listen, when you ever want to read about war, conflict, crisis about a particular country, don't read any book written by someone from that place. I like people like the Nobel Prize winner, okay? Soyinka, that Yoruba man, that Nigerian man. I love him in his writing. I love Chinua Achebe. I love Cyprian Ekwensu. But I tell you, I don't read about them when I want to study Nigerian Biafra Civil War. Why? Him is from the West. Do you know that he also wrote that the Igbos were suppressed in the war? Go and read the book, The Man Died, by him. In fact, do you know that he was arrested during the war because he was seen as someone who was supporting the Biafrans? They imprisoned him for months. He came out and wrote the book, died. The man died and ran away. I'll give you the man died for free. Honorable will give it to you. Honorable will give you to give them for free. The man died. I will not read There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe to come and tell you about the Nigerian Biafra Civil War. Why would I read Chinua Achebe? Chinua Achebe is an Igbo man. In as much as he's literate, emotion can work on him. Who did I read? Frederick Forsyth, the making of the African legend. He died last year. He's a British man. He was brought to Nigeria to come and cover the war. So he was picturing and covering children of Kwashiorkor. The British government asked him to drop the pictures. Because he was a man of character, he resigned and stopped working with them and became an independent private reporter. And so he took things up to himself. He was the one who broadcasted the Asaba massacre. He was the one who also wrote the making of the African legend. Frederick Forsyth is a man that you should celebrate in Nigeria because the man who spoke the truth. So he's a man I read and I gather information from other parts. Look at that man behind me. He has a talk there. That is Marcus Garvey. If you look where we see him, Marcus Garvey, I read his thought too. We'll give you those books for you to let's and let's pay attention. Let me tell you before I close. No victor, no vanquish was what was declared. Why? See, cut some people some slack. Gowon knew that if it was declared that the Biafran lost the war, they will be treated as people who were conquered. In as much as you still receive that kind of treatment today, but I tell you, what you receive today is beans to what it would have been. But listen, if I tell you it's not the way it should have been, it's like building a house on the brick of emotionalism that cannot stand in an ocean of rationalism. But this is how it goes. Gowon said, no victor, no vanquish, meaning no winner, no loser. But then, throughout history, history has shown us one thing, that war can be officially over on paper, but war is never over emotionally. Go and check all the countries of the world that fight a war. The war is over on paper, but emotionally, that is why you are still fighting in the comment section. Emotionally, the war is still on. But the Nigerian Biafran civil war is important, not because of who lost or who won, but because of what it teaches us. It teaches us what happens when people stop listening to each other. It teaches us what happens when leaders allow pride to cover their conviction. It teaches us what happens when people get marginalized. It teaches us what happens when people began to think negatively in the channel of their ethnicity rather than thinking humanity first. It teaches us what happened when we ignore the voices of the common man. It teaches us what happened when ego and irresponsibility takes over leaders. Because Nigeria as a country did not fall overnight. It collapsed piece by piece. Because Nigerian civil war did not start in 1967. It started in 1966 in the heart of the people. It was fear that created the coup. The coup created suspicion. Suspicion created counter coup. Counter coup created revenge. Revenge led us to Abuli. Abuli gave us a chance. We got something, came back, it was misunderstood. What happened? War. In that war, we saw mothers dragging their children who were starving. We saw people, millions of people lost their lives. This is not the kind of fight you fight on Twitter. These are real life wars. So history is asking Nigeria, What have you learned? Your ancestors from the southeast, they named their children Ozemena. Ozemena. And the last time I checked your vocabulary, it said, let another not happen. It is wisdom. Because when a child sees a war that ended, he will break bottle and say, let's do another one. But I tell you, the best approach to revenge is progress. In our next class, don't come to cry, because we are going to go deeper. Deeper. But what I want you to know is that some people were watching your war in a television and were smiling. You know the way you go and watch people fight and box. Some people were watching you like that and was waiting for who will fall first. Let's come and take. Oh, tell me about it. Why is Ajokuta Oil Steel Company the biggest scam in West Africa? Have you ever asked yourself, Ajokuta Iron Steel Company, why is it the biggest scam in West Africa? Who built it? It was built for millions of dollars. Why is it not functioning? Let me tell you. Why do you think your country, Nigeria, is using AK-47? Who built AK-47? Kalashnikov. Who owns the gun? The Russians. Where were your government able to use it in the Civil War? Trade by barter. Give us AK-47. Russia, you will be the one to construct Ajokuta Iron Steel Company. That is why Russia constructed it. Because they gave your government AK-47. The mass weapon of destruction given by Kalashnikov. Because Ojukwu was not ready to trade oil. He wasn't ready to compromise. So the people he fought with were ready to compromise. Go and check Ajokuta Iron Steel Company. You will find it when you are traveling to Abuja, close to Ajokuta. It was never completed. The biggest elephant project in West Africa. It is the biggest scam in the nation, Africa. I ask you and tell you the last thing. Embrace Pan-Africanism. That's why we speak of Ibrahim Traore. An evil has done to your people. Everyone is crying foul. But you must build yourselves. Because when the hawks are fighting, it is the interest of the eagle. Because when they kill themselves, they get the meat very easy. How? The Western world are waiting for you to fight again, to fall again. But what you will take this time around? Nigeria as a country survived 1970. If it happen again, things fall apart and the center cannot hold. It will be worse than there was a country. Yes, it might not be business as usual anymore, but who knows? But we don't want to do that again. So I join your ancestors to say, let the eagle perch and let the hawk perch. The one who said the other will not perch, let his wing break. I am not in support of marginalization. And any man that says let him be free, let him be free. Jopalito, that is what they say in French. Let the birds be free. Freedom is God's given right. If you don't want a man to go, you treat him well and you keep him. But I tell you, let the hawk perch and let the eagle perch. The one who said the other will not perch, let his wing break. Ozo Emena. Wisdom Africa is the principal thing. Wisdom now water. Honorable Speaker, thank you for having me. I love you and I care about you. And I must tell you for the fact, I was scared throughout this lecture because I was thinking that the people that hold power supply will take off the light. But the light stayed. You know why? Because people that you don't see were in this lecture. That's why we gave them 1 minute silence. It's not easy. 1 minute silence. Because the issue of the Nigerian Biafra Civil War is not what every child will discuss. This is the matters of the heart. Emotions were trampled upon. Life was taken out of people. I told you that Donatus Okafor was buried alive. The Donatus Okafor was buried alive. He said it will only take 1 bullet. They said it won't take 1 bullet. Because for him, bullet was nothing. They dug the ground and buried him. Oh my goodness. You need to read, my people. You need to read. Who told you that if you want to hide something from a black man, you should put it in a book? Do you know who your ancestors were? Great people. Oh my goodness. The day we'll go into details, you will know who you are. Why don't you read? Listen, a white man can live his whole life without reading, and he will not be missing anything. But you as an African, if you don't read, you are messed up and messed up. You have to research. God speak to the man that cares, so that when you dream and sleep, you get some knowledge from the ancestors. Have you heard of the Anunnakis?
I'm hearing you.
That's my neighbor. The Anunnakis. Oh my goodness. You are melanin, magnificent. You have powers beyond your comprehension. That is why they want you to fight and wipe yourself out of the surface of the earth. They take over your place.
But Mali said that Africa should unite.
And you annoy me. You from the eastern part of Nigeria, you annoy me when you tell me you're from Israel. How can you come from Israel? Do you know who you are? You are called Ndibo, the ancient people. It is Israel who came from you. You are the chosen, the black Jews. So how can he come from you? Everything started from Africa. We are the cradle. The cradle of humanity.
This is the truth. Pure truth. Pure truth.
So you carry your entire heritage and you give another man. And your brothers from the north, where did they go? They go to Saudi Arabia. They carry stone and be throwing and say they are stoning the devil. Jerusalem is the holy land. Saudi Arabia is the holy land. There's no holy land in Africa. Tell me something.
Why is the whole center answering English?
No holy land in Africa. You want to go to holy land, you go to another man's land. Your own land is what? Tell me about it. I'm a bit angry now. Because you tell me, when you go to Rome, behave like the Romans. I went to somewhere the other day. I wanted to tell them how things are being done. They tell me, Tankrier, behave like the Romans. I said, what do you mean? They said, when you are in Rome, behave like the... I said, I cannot behave like the Romans in Rome. Let me teach you something. A bonus. Bonus. Honorable, can I teach them a bonus? Most of you said, when you go to Rome, okay, oh, thank you very much. The people who buried Donatus Okafor were the coup plotters of 29th July 1966. Okay, the coup plotters. Who were the coup plotters? Lieutenant Colonel Mutra Mohammed, Lieutenant Colonel Theophilus Danjuma, Major Eko Mohammed. These are the people. Okay, Donatus. I will give him a book to share for you. 3 books I've promised, and all the ones I promised I've always been giving. I will give you the one written by Frederick Forsyth, the making of the Biafran legend. I will give you half of a Yellow Sun. Okay? I can give you There Was a Country. I can also give you the making of the African legend. I cannot say give you... No, I won't give you In Biafra, Africa Died. You will cry too much. There's a level we'll get to. I will share those ones. But let me finish. Pay attention. When you go to Rome, behave like the Romans. What do you think that statement means? It means, oh, when you come to this place, behave well. Someone said Donatus Okafor is the uncle. Are you serious? Someone said, that's beautiful. I will tell you something about him you need to know. When you go to Rome, behave like the Romans. No, that is an error. You think that statement is that you should, it's about modality, it's about order. No, it's not about order. It is about conformity. What is the Roman telling you? The Roman is telling you, when you come to our place, if we are saucy, be saucy. If we are nice, be nice. If we are wicked, be wicked. Behave like me when you are in this place. Because the Romans believe that he's the best human being on earth. But I refuse to behave like him. Why? Because when the Romans came to Africa, they did not behave like Africans. They looked at us and called us Africa. People from a place of sun and horror. I am an Akebulan. That is the cradle of humanity, the mother of mankind, the garden of Eden, Akebulan. And the people lied and said that Akebulan belonged to the world of Arab. It is a lie. It is Kush. I don't behave like a Roman. When Romans came to Africa, they do not behave like Africans. They did not behave like us. So why should I go to their place and behave like them? That is a word of conformity. So when you go somewhere and they tell you, hey, my person, you are in Rome, when you are in Rome, tell them, no, you will not. You won't. Because when Romans came to Africa, they did not behave like Africa. And so they told me that Okafor cannot be a saint. Okonkwo can be a saint. Amadi can be a saint. Usman can be a saint. Muhammad can be a saint. Babatunde can be a saint. For me to be a saint, you have to baptize me. And call me Alexandra. You have to baptize me. And give me their names for me to be a saint. I refuse to be compromised by the white man. I refuse it. Listen, when I tell you I refuse to be compromised by the white man, I am not telling you that the name Okonkwo is a bad thing. What am I telling you? Okonkwo in Things Fall Apart. What did they tell us? He took his life? No. Okonkwo didn't take his life in Things Fall Apart. The white man hung him. Because I am looking at the intent of what took his life, not on the action itself. So I refuse to be told that I am a saint. Senator is a saint. And because we are in Africa, we will behave like Akebulans. And when we go to Rome, we will still behave like Akebulans. Africa. Wisdom now water. Wisdom is the principal thing. Honorable, I've passed my time. I have a lecture next. He's Rebo, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. Never, I'm coming. I'm coming.